astrology predictions for the year 2022 for all the 12 ascendants. Hello everybody, I'm Tina Chaudhary. Welcome to my channel and a very warm namaste. So let's take a look at what are the planetary events that are going to happen in 2022 and give us some impact or the major impact. So the 2022 is promising to be a very exciting year for all of us, especially astrologers, because two of the major impactful planets, which is Jupiter and Saturn, both have very important transits in 2022. Now, both of these planets are the ones that gave us the major events in our life. Now, the other planets that are also going to have transits are the nodes. So Rahu, Ketu, which is not planets, but they're virtual planets, which is the nodes, North Node and South Node, are also going to have transits in this year. So let's talk about what happens first. So on April 12th, the nodes, which is Rahu and Ketu, North Node and South Node, are going to transit first. So the nodes always move in a retrograde or in a backward motion. So right now Rahu is in Taurus and Ketu is in Scorpio. So they're going to move one step back. So Rahu moves into Aries and Scorpio will move into Libra. So obviously these two signs, if you are one of these signs, which is Aries and Libra, these nodes are now going to move into your sign. We'll talk about the impact of these signs a little bit in my prediction now for the year, but when the transits start to occur or closer to the transit, I'll make a video and of course talk a little bit more about that. So these are one of the major transits. The next thing that's going to happen immediately the next day after, on April 13th, is that Jupiter is going to transit. It's right now it transited into Aquarius on sometime in November, and then on April 13th, Jupiter transits into its next sign, which is Pisces. Now Pisces is owned by Jupiter, so Jupiter moves into its own house. So now that's a very, very positive transit, and the reason being that, you know, like I said, Pisces is owned by Jupiter. So when Pisces goes home, it's considered Pisces moves into Pisces. Jupiter moves into Pisces, it's considered as if it's going home. So, you know, it feels very good. So when a planet feels good or it goes into its own sign, it gives its most benefic results because it's a happy planet. Now, Jupiter is one of the most benefic planets. So when it becomes happy, goes into its own sign, we can only expect good things from Jupiter. You know, Jupiter's had a very short stay in Aquarius. It's moving so fast. It's almost like it's rushing to go home. The next thing that's going to happen on April 28th is that Saturn, who's been hanging out in Capricorn, owned by, you know, Capricorn is its own sign. And then Saturn goes into Aquarius, which is also owned by Saturn, goes into Aquarius for a little bit. It peaks into Aquarius almost. It like goes a little bit into Aquarius and then stays in there. It only stays in there till about June 4th, and then it starts its retrograde motion and then starts going back towards Capricorn again. And so on July 12th, it's back into a Capricorn. But the good thing is that Saturn likes being in Aquarius way better than it likes being in Capricorn. Why? Because Aquarius is the 11th sign of the zodiac, and the 11th sign of the zodiac represents our wish fulfillment, desires, gains, networking, friends. So Aquarius gives us better things in Aquarius than it does in Capricorn. So a couple of factors we need to keep in mind is that when Saturn does a backward forward motion from Capricorn to Aquarius, that if the Sade Sati, which I'll talk about in a minute, that for people that have the moon placement in Pisces, they're going to have a quick Sade Sati and then back not having the Sade Sati. So they may feel the effect of a Sade Sati for the April to July period, and then the Sade Sati comes off. So I'll talk about that. What is that in a minute? And then the other thing is that people that are having the dasha, antardasha of, or anything to do with Ketu during this time, after July, when Ketu is in Libra and Saturn has moved back to Capricorn, Saturn will have the 10th vision of Ketu. So it's going to be staring at Ketu the whole time. So you need to keep that in mind. Now, Ketu is a little bit of a challenged planet. You know, it's headless. So it also is a very separative planet. So sometimes it gives challenging results in the house that it's sitting in. And now with the 10th aspect of Saturn, we could have some challenging results. So take a look at where Ketu is placed in your chart and also where Saturn is placed, so you know that if you're under the effect of Ketu or Saturn, there's going to be a mixed result between Saturn and Ketu. So those are the two challenging things that are going to happen. Now, I need to talk about what is a Sade Sati. So Sade Sati is when, depending upon the placement of your moon in your chart, so when Saturn comes the house before or over your moon, or the house after your moon, where your moon is placed. Those are the 7.5 years. So Saturn is in a house for 2.5 years. So that would mean 2.5 years before where the moon is placed, 2.5 years over where the moon is placed, and then 2.5 years after the house after where the moon is placed. Our total 7.5 years. And so that's in Vedic astrology is called the Sade Sati. Sade means half and Sati means 7. So it's a 7.5 year cycle or phase that a person goes through. Now I'm going to move on to my predictions. The predictions are based on your ascendant, which is the first house, or the sign in your first house. Also, the actual results that a person gets are always based on their own birth chart. Before I move on, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe. I'm getting so many viewers, but people are forgetting to subscribe. And this video is worth sharing with friends and family so they know what to expect. Aries, Jupiter starts out being in your 11th house, and then after April, it moves to your 12th house. Now, finally, after a long time of working very hard, you may start seeing the results of your actions, of your career. You might start seeing gains. This is a very good year for income. So you'll start seeing some gains from what you've been working hard. You may see, maybe some rewards, recognition, like I said, good gains. And one of the secrets to before April that you could do, because the 11th house represents networking, friends, and older siblings, is if you are looking for something to do, or if you need some favors or some help, I should say, you can reach into your network of professional network, friends, and reach into them and ask them for help. And you'll get it this time, because Jupiter is sitting there waiting to give you the benefic results of that. So try to use that approach if it's something that you're looking for. After April, it moves into your 12th house, and then the 12th house is expenses. So your expenses may go up at that time. But if you're in the business of dealing with something foreign related items, foreign countries, or anything related to foreign, it's a very good time for that. But of course, 12th house does relate expenses, so watch your expenses carefully. One of the things that both Saturn and Jupiter are going to be looking at is your 4th house. So it's a good time for real estate investments, or you could be buying real estate or relocating your home. Now, there's a good chance that you may be asked to relocate for your career. So if that opportunity does come up, please do take it. It will have good results for you. So whenever Jupiter makes you do something or causes something, it always has good results. So now with both Jupiter and Saturn asking you to do that, it'll have good results. So there's no reason that you shouldn't go forward with it. One of the challenging things that's going to happen is that Rahu, the North Node, moves into your Ascendant Lord, and Ketu into your 7th house. Now, when Rahu moves into your Ascendant Lord, it kind of gives you unexpected sort of a health issue sometimes. So, and most of these are not related to your body, because remember, Rahu doesn't have a body, but it relates to your head. So a lot of maybe stress. The stress could be career related, because there's so many things happening in your career. So some stress, it could give you some stress. You need to watch for that, manage your stress very well. Also, when Rahu is in your 1st house, it relates to your thinking, your thought process. And sometimes it doesn't give you the best decision-making ability. You know, it makes things seem bigger than they normally are, or makes things that not what they really are. And that's how Rahu looks at things. It has this shadowy aspect to things. So, you may be looking at things not how they really are, but how you want to see them. So you have to be very careful of how you deal with investments, especially at this time, because your 5th house is being looked at by a Saturn also, and so the 5th house represents investments and how you handle your basically your finances. So be very cautious and very careful about how you handle your investments. Rahu's going to give you this cloudy thinking. Now, Ketu being in your 7th house, the 7th house represents your marriage, and I think that when Ketu comes into your 7th house, it kind of represents a disinterest in marriage. Remember, Ketu is not interested in material things. It's not interested in relationships. Ketu is a private planet. It likes solitude. So you may show less of an interest in the marriage partner. Now, I'm warning you that you can't do that, because this is a time, it's a very sensitive time for you, because if you don't pay attention to the marriage partner, the placement of Ketu may actually cause breakage as well. Also, one of the things that you need to watch for is make sure you don't take out any big loans or give out loans. You won't be able to pay them back, or people won't be able to pay you back. So watch against loans, investments, think through very carefully about those, and make sure you nurture those relationships that you value so much right now. Taurus, what a relief for you after April. Now, before April, Jupiter is going to be in your 10th house, which is your house of career, but it's also the house of Aquarius. So it's probably started to give you some gains, or you probably started to see some results starting in November. But the better stuff is going to come after April. All the expectations that you've been building up, and a lot of people may have been having a lot of expectations from you, you will start to see the results after April, when Jupiter moves into your 11th house, which is Pisces. And then all of a sudden you'll see the shift in your career. Your expectations that you had from your career, you will start to see the results after April. Now, one of the things that Jupiter is going to ask you to do at this time is, because it's looking at your 5th house, is to make some changes and be very creative. In the past, you've been very stuck on something, because Rahu has been in your 1st house, in your ascendant house, and that stays there till April. And so you've been very fixed. Taurus is a fixed sign. So you've been very fixed on, this is what you want to do and this is how you want to do it. You're going to have to show some flexibility, because as Rahu moves from your 1st house to your 12th house, your mind starts to open up, and you may be open to changes and be a little more creative in your career or in your profession. And you may want to do things a little differently and be more flexible in how you want to change your approach in your profession and career, in how to get those gains. You need to leave aside this fixed approach that you've been having for a long time, a year and a half actually, to get these gains. And you may start that after April. At the same time, Saturn is moving into your 9th house. The 9th house is wisdom and asking people for advice. It may not be a very bad idea to ask for advice before you start doing things in your career to get these gains, because the 9th house is activated and it's telling you, ask other people for advice and don't be a fixed sign. That's the ticket to getting what you want. And like I said, Taurus is such a fixed sign. It's an earth sign, so it's a very fixed sign. It has very fixed ideas. The key to getting these gains is going to be, get the advice of these people, your network, ask them for ideas, take everybody's ideas into account, and then move forward. And then you'll see how your gains materialize. Sometimes Taurians don't like the ideas other people give. They want to give their own ideas to people. And that's what holds these people back a lot of times. So that's going to be critical. Now, your 3rd house gets activated by both Jupiter and Saturn's vision. So the 3rd house denotes extremely hard work, and it also may denote some relocation and short travels of some kind. You may be asked to do a lot of short traveling because of your career, or you may actually be offered some sort of a relocation as regards to your profession or your career. If you do that, it's going to end up with very good results, because whenever Jupiter gives you something or offers something, it always ends up in a good situation. So by all means do that, put that effort in. And 3rd house demands that you work extremely hard. Not what you think is hard, but what everybody else thinks is hard work. So make sure you put the hard work and self-effort. Ask everybody for advice. Do a concentrated self-effort, but also include the team in it. The 3rd house also means the team. So the houses 3rd and 5th are being activated very well by Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn's activating only your 3rd house, but it's asking you to work hard as a team, not as a leader. So make sure you do that. Get everybody's input and move forward. Gets you good results. One of the things that the fifth house also activates is a love life. So if you're looking for love, this might be the time after April that you try to look for it and you actually get it. It will be a good result because Jupiter, like I said, Jupiter is making you the fifth house active. It's also a very good time if you're in the field of education, meaning if you're trying to get a new skill set, you're learning, you're in education yourself, you're giving it or getting it. A very good time because the ninth and the fifth house activated by Jupiter is one of the best things that you can expect from Jupiter. Education is going to be very well for you. Good results from that. One of the things that are challenging is if you're married and Ketu is now in your 6th house and Rahu is in your 12th house. This is the only challenge that I can tell you that's going to happen. When Rahu moves into the 12th house, it gives you stress. And because the 12th house also denotes expenses, a lot of expenses, Rahu doesn't know when to stop spending. It just keeps going after luxuries and luxurious things. So the minute you start getting these gains and you start getting a lot of money, you're going to go out and start spending it. Because the 4th house is activated, there's a good chance you're going to spend it on real estate. So by all means do that if that's what you want. But Rahu does tend to make you spend a lot on luxury items, like high price items. It could be anything. And Rahu's never satisfied. So you're never going to be happy with your spending. You're just going to keep going out and spending. One of the impacts that Rahu in the 12th house does is it gives you a lot of sleeplessness. So make sure you try your best to be stress-free and try to sleep well. Otherwise, Rahu is going to make you give you some sleep issues as well at this time. So otherwise, the 6th house Ketu is damaging for some relationships, like your marital relationship. So if you're married, you need to nurture your relationships very well. Because the 3rd house is being activated, communication is going to be the most important thing the whole year. You're going to have to be very cautious and very careful about how you communicate to everybody, whether it's your co-workers, whether it's your people at home, whether it's your love relationship, or especially your marital relationship. Gemini, you're going to start out the year with Jupiter being in your 9th house. Now, the 9th house Jupiter actually gives really good results as far as education is concerned, as far as getting good guidance is concerned. And you know, the 9th house represents luck, so your luck is actually on your side. So if there's anything that you really wanted to get or and go for, luck will be on your side. So this is a good time for you. Then after April, it moves into your 10th house, and the 10th house is your career. So if you're looking for things in your career to do, the Jupiter will activate it and give you very good results after April as far as career luck is concerned. It's also going to start looking at your 2nd house. So when the 10th house and the 2nd house get activated by Jupiter, the 2nd house represents income, your family, and family savings. So basically both the career and the income house get activated after April, and so your income is impacted. You're going to get good income this year, and your career will also see good gains this year. So after April, there's a lot of good things coming your way as far as your career is concerned. One of the things that is going to happen is that Rahu is going to move into your 11th house and Ketu is going to move into your 5th house. Now, Rahu in the 11th house is gains, desires, wish fulfillment, your network, your socializing, your friends. Rahu is never satisfied with the house that it goes in. It's never going to be satisfied. So the problem is going to be, no matter how much you get, no matter how much luck you get, no matter how much happiness and gains and money you get, you're always going to look at it and go, and this is not enough. So you're always going to be, well, I was supposed to get a lot of gains. I was supposed to get a lot, but this isn't enough. And no matter how much you get, you're going to get the feeling of dissatisfaction. This is what you're going to need to work on the whole time, the 18 months after April, is work on your satisfaction level. Tell yourself, work on yourself, your own mental mind. You have to work on your own mind to tell yourself that this is good, that this is, that's what you're getting. Whatever you're getting is good enough, because Rahu is going to keep telling you it's not. And so the other impact is going to be that Ketu in your 5th house is going to cause some disruption. 5th house represents happiness. 5th house represents children and your love life. And so because of this Rahu being dissatisfied with everything, you're going to become slightly unhappy, because then you're going to not be happy with your children. You may have issues with your children. You may have issues with your love life, because you're chasing. Rahu is going to make you chase material things. And in the bargain, you're going to lose out on the happiness that you're supposed to get in life, which could be from children, it could be from education, it could be from just purely having fun, or your love life. When Saturn sits in the 10th house, a person tends to complain about aches and pains, and with joints, basically joints and backache, and bones, to do with bones and body aches mostly. Saturn represents body aches, so a person tends to be achy, with joints and pains like that. So that's what Saturn in the 8th house represents. And so when it goes into the 9th house between April and July, you're going to feel like, okay, I'm getting a little better because, Saturn's moved out. And then Saturn moves back again. And then here you are dissatisfied again. So one of the things that I'm recommending very strongly, because Jupiter is going to be looking at your 6th house as well. So I'm recommending this to Gemini people, is one, because your 9th house is activated for a while by Jupiter, is to do meditation. The meditation is very necessary for the Gemini people. Also, one of the things that the sixth house remedy is what I'm going to give to my Gemini people is a slight, you always have to have a very strict regimen of doing some sort of physical workout. Now, I don't mean you have to go get a gym membership, but even if you go for a walk every day, please do it, and do it regularly every day. Or you can do a little bit stretching, you can do yoga. I mean, as long as it's something physical that you have to do, it's okay to do. And that's a 6th house remedy. Mantra practice for the 9th house, following some religious practice, or just thinking of the divine, meditating for a few minutes, kind of calms that Rahu down a little bit. And so otherwise, Gemini, it's a good year for you. It's meaning you'll get good gains, your career is good, your income's good, but the general feeling of dissatisfaction is never going to leave you. Cancer, when the year starts, Jupiter will be in your 8th house. It's a little challenging position for Jupiter, because the 8th house is, it's a house of obstacles and some troubles relating to health. So, but after April, Jupiter will move into the 9th house. Now, that's absolutely the best house for Jupiter, because Jupiter loves being in the 9th house. That's when the luck completely changes. Now, especially, 9th house denotes luck. It denotes education. It denotes the divine and dharma also, and it also denotes your father. So after it moves into the 9th house in April, your career all of a sudden may do well. Your luck factor will change. Now, one of the things you have to keep in mind is, if you are working in education, if you're doing anything in education, you're a student or you're working in the field of education, all of a sudden this is going to be the blessing, the ultimate blessing from Jupiter, because Jupiter in the 9th house denotes education. It's also going to look at your 1st house from the 9th house, and all of a sudden after April, you're going to get this burst of energy, because in the 1st house, when Jupiter looks at the 1st house, it gives you a very positive vibe, and because Jupiter is a benefic planet, it makes you feel really good. It's also going to look at your 5th house, which is the 5th house denotes your children and your creativity, your having fun, your love life, and again, education. So the 9th and the 5th together are getting activated. So especially people in education, if you're a student or if you're a teacher or you're doing anything in the field of education, what a miraculous time it's going to be after April. Very good gains from that, especially also from your father. So be close to your father after April. You may see a better relationship with him, or a good relationship with him. You may enjoy some very good time with your children and your father at that time. Now, one of the challenges is that Saturn has been sitting in your 7th house the whole time, for a long time. And it's been giving, 7th house relates on marriage. So it's been giving a little bit of a trouble to the marriage. A lot of Cancerians may be having some marital issues at this time, disagreements. Nothing big, but just bickering back and forth. What Saturn does is it kind of makes you bicker back and forth over little things and fighting. And also when it looks at the 1st house, it kind of gives you aches and pains, the fact that you're not feeling well, achy bones and achy joints. So that's what Saturn does when it sits in the 7th house and looks at the 1st house. And that might change from April to July, because Saturn will move into your 8th house, which is not an awesome house for Saturn to be in, but it kind of gives you a little bit of a relief, so to speak. And so, like I said, after April, all of a sudden the miracle starts, right? One of the things that is going to happen also in April is that the nodes will move, and so Rahu moves into your 10th house and Ketu moves into your 4th house. Now the 4th house is the house of domestic bliss and mental peace of mind. So you may still be stressed out. When Ketu is in your 4th house, it stresses you out a little bit because Ketu wants to disengage from people. It wants you to separate from people. So you may be thinking of I don't want to engage with anybody. I just leave me alone. So it kind of gives you that feeling of leave me alone. Now, one of the things is that when Saturn is still in your 7th house and Ketu is in your 4th house, it's going to still cause disturbance at home with your marriage partner. Maybe not your children, but your marriage partner, where you're going to be just leave me alone. I don't want to argue with you anymore, which is earlier you guys were arguing and now you may want to not even argue. So this is something that you really need to watch for. But one of the things, it's not good, but one of the things is that Rahu is in your 10th house. So whenever Rahu and Ketu come in your main houses of the 4-10 axis, almost always it's a karmic position for Rahu and Ketu to come in, which means that there's sudden changes. There's sudden changes in your career. There could be sudden changes in your house domestic situation, meaning you could relocate as a result of your career. You could relocate, your job. You can have a transformation. So when Rahu Ketu come in your 4-10 axis, these are transformatory changes, and sometimes they give you a little bit of discomfort. So I've seen a lot of people have the Rahu Ketu in the 4-10 axis and they've transformed completely, and the transformation could result from completely new careers. It can come from moving to completely new places, and so you need to kind of watch for that, and don't be so shocked or don't be so surprised. Now that's an 18-month transition, so transit for Rahu Ketu to be in. So it's not all of a sudden going to happen in April. So since April to the next 18 months, it could happen anytime during that time. So if you're thinking of you want to do something different, or you want to do something new, or you want to move somewhere, this probably will be the time that it actually happens. So that's some of the things you want to kind of watch. Your 3rd house does get activated because of Jupiter. So short travels and communication are going to be very key. So like I said, the 3rd house also can activate a relocation as well. So put all that together, there may be some relocation that you have to see, but communication with younger siblings and stuff like that is also heightened, and actually it's a good thing because Jupiter aspects that. So if there's any relocation that's presented to you, it's actually a good thing, and it will give you good results. So good things, but very transformatory for Cancer after April. And with that, I come to the end of my video. See you later. Stay very safe, and goodbye for now.